The wind howled across the empty desert like it was warning the world that something terrible was coming. A lone cowboy rode slowly through the burning heat of Red Canyon, his black coat covered in dust, his revolver hanging low near his hand. The horse beneath him moved carefully over the cracked earth, while vultures circled high above the rocks. Nobody in the Wild West had seen that cowboy in years, but the moment people saw him riding again, they started locking their doors. Because the last time Ethan Cross disappeared, an entire gang vanished with him. And now, he was back.
The town of Black Hollow looked exactly the same as it had 10 years ago. Crooked buildings, dirty streets, drunken men stumbling out of saloons, the sound of piano music floating through the air. But Ethan's eyes weren't looking at the town. They were looking at the old wooden house near the hill outside town, or what was left of it. Burned wood still covered the ground like black bones. The wind pushed ashes through the dirt, while silence filled the air. Ethan slowly climbed off his horse. For a long moment, he just stood there. 10 years ago, this had been his home.
10 years ago, his wife Sarah laughed on that porch, while his little son Jacob chased chickens through the yard. 10 years ago, Ethan believed evil stayed far away from peaceful towns. He was wrong. His boots pressed against the ashes as memories crawled back into his mind. The screaming, the gunshots, the fire, and the men wearing red bandanas. The Crimson Wolves, the deadliest gang west of Texas. Ethan knelt down slowly and picked up a small burned toy horse from the dirt. Half of it was melted black from the fire. Jacob's favorite toy. His hand tightened around it.
"They're still breathing," he whispered. A voice suddenly came from behind him. "You should have stayed gone." Ethan turned calmly. An old man stood near the fence holding a shotgun. His beard was gray now, his hands shaking slightly. Sheriff Doyle. Older, weaker, but still alive. Ethan stared at him for several seconds. "You knew I'd come back," Ethan said quietly. The sheriff sighed heavily. "I prayed you wouldn't. Where are they?" Sheriff Doyle looked away toward town. "The Crimson Wolves disappeared years ago." Ethan stepped closer. "Men like that don't disappear."
The sheriff stayed silent. That silence told Ethan everything. "They're here." Doyle finally nodded once. "Some of them." Ethan's eyes darkened. "How many?" "Enough." The sheriff lowered the shotgun slightly. "You don't want this road again, Ethan." Ethan looked back at the burned house. "I've been on this road for 10 years. The saloon doors slammed open as Ethan entered Black Hollow that evening. The piano stopped immediately. Every conversation died. Cowboys slowly turned toward him with nervous eyes. Some recognized him instantly.
Others noticed the scar across his face and the cold look in his eyes and decided not to ask questions. Ethan walked calmly to the counter. "Whiskey." The bartender quickly poured the drink without speaking. A man sitting nearby laughed quietly. "Well, look what the desert dragged back." Ethan didn't turn around. The man stood up slowly, revealing the red bandana tied around his neck. One of the wolves. "You got guts coming back here, Cross." Ethan finally looked at him. The outlaw smiled. Then Ethan shot him in the face. The gunfire exploded through the saloon.
The outlaw crashed backward over a table while women screamed. Before anyone could react, Ethan grabbed another man reaching for his gun and slammed his head into the counter. A third outlaw pulled a knife. Bang! The bullet hit him straight in the chest. Silence filled the saloon again. Smoke curled from Ethan's revolver. 3 bodies lay on the floor. Ethan calmly drank his whiskey. Then he looked at the terrified bartender. "Now they know I'm back." Outside town, hidden deep inside the mountains, a group of armed men sat around a fire.
Their leader listened silently as one wounded outlaw explained what happened in Black Hollow. The outlaw's hands trembled. "It was him, Mason." The leader's expression didn't change. "He killed Tommy, Reed, and Carter. The fire cracked loudly in the silence. Then the leader finally stood up. Mason Ryder, leader of the Crimson Wolves. Tall, cold-eyed, ruthless. The man responsible for Ethan's ruined life. Mason slowly picked up his rifle. I buried Ethan Cross 10 years ago. He survived. Mason's face darkened. No, he said quietly. A man survives.
He looked toward the darkness outside the cave. What came back isn't a man. That night, Ethan sat alone inside a small room above the saloon. Rain hammered the windows while thunder rolled across the desert. He cleaned his revolver slowly and carefully. Then he heard footsteps outside his door. A small knock followed. Ethan reached for his gun instantly. "Who is it?" "Emily." His expression shifted slightly. He opened the door carefully. A woman stood outside holding a lantern. She looked older now, but Ethan recognized her immediately. Emily Doyle, the sheriff's daughter.
Years ago, she used to babysit Jacob while Ethan worked cattle outside town. Now sadness filled her eyes. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered. Ethan looked away. "I didn't come back for peace." Emily stepped inside carefully. "They'll kill you." "They already killed everything that mattered." Her eyes softened. "For 10 years, people believed he were dead. I almost was. What happened to you?" Ethan stayed silent for a moment. Then he finally spoke. "I hunted them." Flashbacks flooded his mind. Cold winters, bloody shootouts, desert graves.
Cities full of killers. For 10 years, Ethan Cross hunted Crimson Wolves across the frontier like a ghost. One by one, they died. Some begged, some ran, some screamed his name before the bullets hit them. But Mason Ryder always escaped, always one step ahead. Emily looked at the scars covering Ethan's hands. "You've been living like this all this time?" Ethan nodded slowly. Revenge keeps a man breathing longer than hope. Before Emily could answer, boom, an explosion shook the entire town. People screamed outside. Ethan rushed to the window.
Flames rose near the sheriff's office. The Crimson Wolves had arrived. Gunfire erupted through the streets as masked riders stormed into Black Hollow. Citizens ran in panic while bullets shattered windows. Ethan grabbed his weapons instantly. Emily looked terrified. "Ethan!" "Stay inside." He kicked open the door and stepped into chaos. An outlaw charged toward him on horseback, firing wildly. Bang! The rider fell instantly. Another outlaw appeared behind a wagon. Bang! Dead. Ethan moved through the streets like death itself. Fast, precise, merciless.
The wolves quickly realized something horrifying. Ethan Cross wasn't the same rancher they attacked 10 years ago. He had become something far worse. Sheriff Doyle joined the fight near the jail, firing his shotgun wildly. "We're pinned down!" Ethan spotted rooftops above them. 2 snipers. Bang, bang. Both dropped instantly. Then a deep voice echoed through town. "Ethan!" Everything went silent. A rider slowly emerged through the smoke. Mason Ryder. The 2 men stared at each other across the burning strait. 10 years of hatred stood between them. Mason smiled slightly.
"You should have stayed buried." Ethan's hand hovered near his revolver. "You burned my family alive." Mason tilted his head. "And I'd do it again." The street became deadly quiet. Rain mixed with ash while frightened townspeople watched from hiding places. Mason spread his arms slightly. "Look around you, Ethan. This world belongs to wolves. Men like you were always meant to die." Ethan's eyes became colder than ice. "You're right about one thing." His fingers tightened near the gun. "Someone dies tonight." Suddenly Mason smirked. Then he fired first. The duel exploded violently.
Bullets ripped through wood as both men moved instantly for cover. The town erupted into chaos again. Outlaws fired from rooftops while Ethan fought through the streets alone. One by one, the wolves fell, but there were too many. A bullet tore through Ethan's shoulder. He staggered backward behind a wagon, blood soaking his coat. Across the street, Mason reloaded calmly. "You're slowing down, old friend." Ethan gritted his teeth through the pain. Then he noticed something beside him, a stick of dynamite. An idea formed instantly.
Mason stepped forward confidently with his rifle raised. "This ends now." Ethan lit the dynamite, then threw it straight toward the water tower above the street. Mason's eyes widened. Boom! The explosion shattered the tower instantly. Thousands of gallons of water crashed down into the street like a flood, smashing horses, wagons, and outlaws into the mud. The chaos gave Ethan enough time to disappear into the smoke. Mason looked around furiously. "Find him!" But Ethan was already hunting. One outlaw turned a corner, knife across the throat. Another entered an alley.
Bullet between the eyes. Fear spread through the Crimson Wolves. The great gang that terrorized the frontier was now being slaughtered by one man. And somewhere in the darkness, Ethan kept coming. Hours later, only silence remained. Bodies covered the muddy streets of Black Hollow. Rain still fell softly from the sky. Mason limped through the empty town alone, breathing heavily. His gang was gone, destroyed. Then he heard boots behind him. Ethan emerged from the shadows slowly. Blood covered his shirt. One revolver remained in his hand. Mason laughed bitterly.
"All this for revenge?" Ethan stared at him coldly. "No." He pulled the burned toy horse from his pocket. "This is for my son." For the first time, Mason looked uncertain. "You kill me, and what then?" Ethan didn't answer. "Does your family come back?" Silence. Mason smiled weakly. "That's what I thought." Then suddenly, bang. Mason fired a hidden pistol. But Ethan was faster. His bullet tore straight through Mason's chest. The outlaw leader froze. Shock filled his eyes. Then he slowly collapsed into the mud. Dead. The storm finally began to fade.
Ethan stood there breathing heavily while the rain washed blood from the streets. 10 years. 10 years of pain. 10 years of revenge. And now it was over. Or at least it should have been. Sheriff Doyle approached carefully. "It's done." Ethan looked down at Mason's body. "No," he said quietly. "It costs too much to ever be done." The sheriff studied him silently. "What will you do now?" Ethan looked toward the sunrise appearing over the desert. For the first time in years, he didn't know. Emily approached slowly from behind. "You could stay." Ethan looked at her.
Then, at the ruined town, people slowly emerged from hiding places, staring at him like he was some kind of legend. Or monster. Maybe both. Ethan mounted his horse quietly. Emily's voice trembled slightly. "Where will you go?" The cowboy looked toward the endless desert. "There's always another road." Then he rode away. The people of Black Hollow watched silently as the lone cowboy disappeared into the rising sun. Some said Ethan Cross became a hero. Others believed he became something darker long ago. But every person in the Wild West remembered one thing forever. Never destroy the family of a peaceful man, because if he survives, he'll return as something far more dangerous than death itself.